Welcome to Somatic Shadow Work for Sleep, a meditation series that recalibrates the thoughts, actions, and habits that govern your daily life. Your guide in these meditations is Seth Cherepak, author of Awaken Your Shadow and founder of somatic axiology. These meditations speak to your dominant form of intelligence, known by cognitive neuroscience as value intelligence. Value intelligence, or VQ, operates upstream of your intellectual intelligence, IQ, and your emotional intelligence, EQ. VQ is the decentralized intelligence sprawling throughout your entire being, like an underground root system feeding every branch above it and the fruit it bears. VQ is the silent architect of the thoughts, decisions, and actions that seem to be under your conscious control, until they're tested by the pressures, challenges, and opportunities of your daily life. This is how somatic axiology succeeds in delivering on the promises made by the schools of New Age energy healing, EFT, breathwork, chakra work, sound healing, which address mainly only your EQ, and the school of conventional methods, NLP, positive affirmations, and mindset programs, which address mainly your IQ. Somatic axiology speaks to your VQ, quietly and intentionally transforming the subconscious signal that governs them both, so your thoughts grow clearer and your feelings steadier. Listen to this in a place where your attention is free to shift from the worries and cares of the external world into the rich architecture of your internal world, where your transformation begins. In this episode, Activating Your Anointed Self, Seth guides you on a journey into the part of you that learned to grip, to control, and to hold the whole world together by sheer force of will. This is your first step toward the strength that comes through surrender, instead of the exhaustion that comes from holding on.
We will begin our journey with 4 deep breaths. Breathe in quickly, feeling your belly expand. Hold as your body begins to relax and your mind begins its descent. Breathe out, feeling your body relax and your mind descending deeper. Breathe in again, feeling your belly expand more and more, and hold. Breathe out slowly as your body relaxes more and more and your mind descends deeper and deeper. Breathe in again, your belly expanding more and more and more. Hold. Now begin the slow release, your body relaxing more and more, your mind descending deeper and deeper and deeper. Breathe in a final time, your belly expanding fully. Hold. Now breathe slowly out, your body relaxing completely, your mind descending deeper and deeper and deeper, all the way to the deepest part, the part beyond your thoughts, beyond your feelings, and beyond your conscious reach. You are now completely relaxed and at peace. It's late, and the world has finally gone quiet. The day has signed off. The house has settled. The people you are responsible for are sleeping, and you are not. You are still on watch. This is not self-help. This is somatic shadow work, not a course on letting go. not a meditation on surrender, not another teaching on trust. Somatic shadow work is the descent beneath the management into the body of a man who has been holding the world up for so long that he has confused the weight in his hands with the meaning of his life. So let us go there slowly, because tonight we are not entering a new room. We are entering the room beneath all the rooms, the boiler room of the castle, the mechanism that has been quietly powering every shadow you have ever walked through in this series, the controlling self. And before the mind gets clever about that name, before it starts cataloging the men it knows who are controlling, let me describe him from the inside. Because he is not the obvious one, he is not the bully, he is not the tyrant, he is not the man whose hand on the wheel can be seen from a mile away. He is the responsible one. He is the one everyone counts on. He is the one who carries the family. He is the one who runs the company. He is the one who, even in his prayer, even in his faith, even in the practices he has built, is quietly running the universe in the background. And tonight we are going to find him in your body. Start with your hands. Right now, even as you lie there listening, notice them. There is a faint, persistent tension in your fingers, not a fist. Nothing dramatic. A small, low-grade gripping, as if your hands are holding something invisible, something they have been holding for so long that they no longer feel themselves holding it. Something that, if you actually loosened your fingers, would fall. Feel that the grip is real. The thing in your hands is not, and yet the hands have not let go. Now your solar plexus, the center of your body, just below the sternum, above the navel, the place where the diaphragm meets the gut. There is a clench there. Not pain, not panic. A held knot of power, a small central fist of will that has been keeping the entire architecture of your life from falling apart. Or so it believes. This is the seat of the grip, not the hands. The hands are the symptom. The solar plexus is the source. This is where the will of a man lives. This is the place from which agency is generated. This is the engine room of doing, and yours has been at full power since you were younger than you can remember. Now your neck, the back of it, the base of the skull, where the shoulders meet the spine, feel the weight there. That dense, heavy load that sits across the trapezius muscles like a yoke. That tightness at the top of the spine that no massage ever quite reaches. That subtle pressure pushing your head slightly forward of your body, even in bed. That is not posture. That is the weight of the world. And you have been carrying it, not metaphorically, literally in the back of your neck for decades. The hands, the solar plexus, the back of the neck. This is the somatic signature of the controlling self. 3 points of held effort, forming a triangle through your body that has been bearing weight you were never meant to bear alone. And the weight has a specific shape. Notice what your mind is doing right now, even as you listen to me. It is running the list. The list of everything you are responsible for. The list of everything that depends on you not dropping the ball. The list of everything that would fall apart if you actually let go. The work that needs your attention tomorrow. The bills that need to be tracked. The child who needs the appointment. The parent who needs the call. The friend who needs the check-in. The roof. The car. The retirement. The health. The faith. The legacy. The list runs even now. In the dark, while the rest of the world sleeps. Because the list cannot be put down. Because if you put the list down, some part of you believes the list will not be picked up by anyone else. And here is where the diagnosis gets specific. Because you are not just controlling. That is too small a word for what is actually happening in your body. You have somewhere along the way appointed yourself the executive of reality, the chief operating officer of your entire small universe, the one whose vigilance keeps the system running. And the moment you imagine stopping, even for an hour, even in your sleep, the body produces an unmistakable signal. The solar plexus tightens. The hands grip a little harder. The neck takes on a little more weight. And a small voice underneath the body says, "Do not let go. You are the only one holding this." And here is what you have not been able to admit, even to yourself. You believe that voice is responsibility. You believe that voice is maturity. You believe that voice is faithfulness. You believe that voice is the very thing that makes you a good man, a good father, a good husband, a good son, a good steward, a good servant of whatever you believe is asking you to be a steward at all. And the witness sitting quietly behind your eyes can see something more precise. That voice is not your maturity. That voice is a small boy who decided a long time ago that no one was coming to help. And so he would have to become the one who held everything forever, without rest, without relief, without ever being able to set the load down, because the moment he set it down, The thing he believed about the world would be confirmed, that no one was coming, that he was, in some deep and unfaceable way, alone. This is the great hidden engine beneath every other room in the castle. The passive man buried his no because he believed no one would catch him if he spoke it. The medic carried everyone else because he believed no one would carry him. The scrutinizer scanned the horizon because he believed no one was guarding the gates with him. The reckless man burned his life down because he believed no real frontier was being held open for him. The confused man outsourced his knowing because he believed his own signal was unsupported. The charismatic man wore the mask because he believed the real face would not be received. The transcendent man climbed because he believed he had to ascend to the love alone. 7 shadows, 7 contracts, and underneath all of them, the same buried belief. No one is coming. I have to do this myself. This is the orphan's vow. And it has been running underneath every other vow in your body for 40 years. Tonight we are going to find it. And we are going to find what it has cost you to keep it. But before we go there, notice something disturbing. You have built a spiritual life on top of this vow. You pray. You believe. You may even have a deep, real relationship with what you call God, what you call the Father, what you call grace. And yet, when you check your body at midnight, the solar plexus is still clenched. The hands are still gripping. The neck is still carrying. The faith is in your mind. The orphan is in your body. And the orphan has the controlling vote. You are a man who believes intellectually that he is held and operates somatically as if he is alone. You are, in the most precise theological language available, a functional orphan in the Father's house, living under a roof you cannot fully trust, eating from a table you cannot fully sit at, surrounded by an abundance you cannot stop trying to manufacture. And the most spiritual thing you do all day, the prayers, the practices, the disciplines, the sacraments, sits on top of the same gripped solar plexus, the same clenching hands, the same weighted neck. You have been performing faith with the body of an orphan and calling it holiness. You have been running the universe in the background while talking to God in the foreground, and the body knows the difference, even when the mind does not. This is why you cannot rest. This is why your sleep is shallow. This is why your prayer is, in some honest hour you do not often visit, exhausting. Because the orphan beneath the believer cannot put the world down, and the believer above the orphan cannot quite figure out why grace is not landing. The grace is landing. Grace is always landing. The orphan cannot let it through, because the orphan has appointed himself the substitute father, the stand-in, the one who covers the gap, the one who runs the system because in his deepest conviction no one else will, and he cannot let grace replace him, because if grace replaced him, he would have to face the question he has been avoiding his entire life. What if I was never supposed to carry this? What if there was always someone here? What if the holding I have done for 40 years was not faithfulness, but unbelief dressed up as duty? That question is too big to answer in the mind. It has to be answered in the body, in the hands that finally release, in the solar plexus that finally softens, in the neck that finally lets the weight slide off, and tonight in the honest dark, that body is the closest to being able to hear the answer that it has been in a very long time. So stay there. Do not pick up the list again. Do not run the spreadsheet of tomorrow. Do not perform a quick interior calculation of what still needs to be managed before dawn. Just feel the hands, the solar plexus, the back of the neck, and the small boy underneath the body who is finally close enough to be heard, the one who decided all those years ago that no one was coming, and that he would have to become the one who held everything from now on. Tonight, for the first time, we are going to ask him a question he has been refusing to consider his entire life. What did he see on the day he decided to pick up the world by himself? And what was promised to him in the silence that followed? So let us go back before the company, back before the family you are responsible for, back before the list that never closes, back before the spreadsheet of obligations you have been quietly running since you woke up this morning, back to the boy you used to be, because the grip in your hands tonight, the clench in your solar plexus, the weight across the back of your neck was not put there by your career. It was not put there by your marriage. It was not put there by the people who depend on you today. It was put there by a small body in a small house a long time ago, on the day he came to a conclusion no child should ever have to come to. Picture him, the boy version of you, and notice something specific about the room he is standing in. The room is too big for him. The problem in the room is too big for him. The grief in the room is too big for him. The fear in the room is too big for him. The chaos in the room is too big for him. And he is looking around. He is looking around the way every small child looks around when something is going wrong. He is looking for the grown-up who will know what to do, the grown-up who will pick this up, the grown-up who will handle this so that he does not have to, and the grown-up is not there. Maybe the grown-up is not physically there. A father who left, a father who worked, a father who died, a father who was so beaten down by his own life that the small body of his son was the last thing he could afford to notice. Maybe the grown-up is in the room, physically present, but not functioning. A parent overwhelmed, a parent ill, a parent addicted, a parent depressed, a parent emotionally collapsed under the weight of their own unmet life. Maybe the grown-up is in the room and looks functional, but is the source of the problem itself. A parent who was the storm instead of the shelter from it. The specifics vary. The conclusion is the same. The boy looks around for the grown-up, and the boy does not find one. And in that moment, in the silence that follows, something happens in the body of a child that almost no adult ever names afterward. He makes a vow, not in words. He does not have the words. He makes it in the body, in the solar plexus that tightens for the first time around a piece of will that was never meant to be held by someone that small. In the hands that close automatically around the load no one else is going to pick up. In the back of the neck that takes on its first portion of the weight that will continue to grow for the next 40 years. The vow is simple. No one is coming. I have to do this. From now on, forever. This is the orphan's vow. And it is the foundational contract beneath every other contract you have signed in your life. The passive man's no was buried on top of this vow. The medic's ledger was kept on top of this vow. The scrutinizer's wheel was gripped on top of this vow. The reckless man's match was struck on top of this vow. The outsourcer's static was generated on top of this vow. The charismatic man's mask was worn on top of this vow. The transcendent man's ladder was climbed on top of this vow. 7 shadows. And every one of them was a different child's strategy for surviving the same primal conclusion. No one is coming. I have to do this. The controlling self is the most direct of the 7. He did not bury his no. He did not become the medic. He did not perform the curated face. He did not climb above his humanness. He just picked up the load. And he has not put it down since. Notice what the boy decides in that moment. He decides that he will be capable, that he will be reliable, that he will be the one who can be counted on, that he will be the small adult inside the larger crisis, and from the outside that decision will look like maturity. It will be praised. It will be encouraged. It will be held up to other children as a model. Look how responsible he is. Look how mature he is. Look how he just steps up. Look how he never needs anything. Look how he can be trusted with anything. And every word of that praise welded the load a little more permanently into his body, because praise at that age was not affirmation of a strength. Praise was confirmation of a contract. You were rewarded for picking the load up. And so the load became how love was earned. The boy who put down the load lost the praise. The boy who carried the load kept the praise. And he was a smart boy. He noticed. And the noticing became the foundation of his entire developing self. He grew up. But notice how he grew up. He did not grow up the way the other children grew up. The other children in healthier homes grew up underneath a roof. They built themselves inside a structure that was already being held by someone else. They could afford to be silly. They could afford to be irresponsible. They could afford to not yet know how the bills got paid, or how the food appeared, or how the world stayed together overnight. You did not have that luxury. You knew before any child should know exactly how the world stayed together overnight. Because somewhere in the body of a small boy, you had picked up the corner of that holding, and you have been holding it ever since. This is what makes the controlling self so hard to see in yourself. Because the load is real. The load you have carried has been real. Things did fall apart when you did not pick them up. People did go without when you did not provide. Systems did break when you did not maintain them. The childhood proved the vow. Over and over again, the world confirmed the boy's conclusion. And so the vow hardened. Year after year, crisis after crisis, responsibility after responsibility. By the time you were 12, the vow had become a posture. By the time you were 20, the vow had become a personality. By the time you were 30, the vow had become a career. By the time you were 40, the vow had become the entire architecture of your adult life. And every layer of competence you built on top of it, the skills, the income, the title, the network, the reputation, the family, the legacy, was another stone in the wall of the orphan's house. The house you built because you believed in the deepest part of your body that no one was building one for you. Now here is where the diagnosis goes from sad to dangerous. The orphan's vow does not stay in the secular layer of your life. The vow climbs. Watch what happens when the boy who signed this vow encounters faith, encounters God, encounters the very Father his body has been refusing to believe is real. He believes with his mind, with his theology, with his vocabulary. He reads the scripture that says he is held. He prays the prayers that confess his dependence. He sings the hymns that name God as Father. He speaks with real conviction about grace. And every word of it is sincere. But notice what the body is doing while the mind is saying these things. The solar plexus is still clenched. The hands are still gripping. The neck is still carrying. The boy is still on watch. Because the mind has converted to a new theology. The body has not. The body is still operating on the original vow. No one is coming. I have to do this. The mind says, my Father holds the universe. The body says, but I am the one holding my piece of it. And just in case, the boy underneath every layer of doctrine adds 3 small words that nobody hears him say, but that govern the entire architecture of his adult life. Just in case. I will believe in the Father. Just in case he does not show up, I will trust God. Just in case God is busy elsewhere, I will rest in grace. Just in case grace gets distracted, I will affirm the providence of the universe. Just in case the universe forgets my particular file, the boy never stopped backstopping God. He cannot. Because the vow he signed in that childhood room was signed before he knew that God existed. And the vow has seniority. This is the most precise theological wound a man can carry. You can have a sophisticated, articulate, biblically literate, sincere faith on top of a body that has not, for one moment of its life, actually believed that the Father was going to show up. You are not a hypocrite. You are not faking. Your faith is real. But it is sitting on top of a vow it never had a chance to dismantle, because the vow is not in your mind. The vow is in your hands. The vow is in your solar plexus. The vow is in the back of your neck. And the body did not get the memo when the mind converted. This is the great irony of the Christian controlling self. He has the most beautiful theology of any of the 7 shadows. He has the most sophisticated language of trust. He has the deepest articulation of fatherhood, of grace, of providence, of rest. And he cannot, in his actual nervous system, stop being the orphan. He prays beautifully and then runs the spreadsheet of his life as if no one had heard the prayer. He confesses dependence and then carries the day as if dependence were a poetic figure of speech. He sings about the goodness of God and then lies awake at 1 a.m, running the list of everything God has apparently delegated to him. And the result in his body is exhaustion, a specific kind of exhaustion that no other shadow produces. Because no other shadow asks a man to carry the entire weight of the world, while simultaneously believing he is being held by the one who carries it. The contradiction is the exhaustion. He believes one thing, and he lives another, and the gap between the two is being held open by his solar plexus. 24 hours a day, for 40 years. Now I want you to feel this in your body right now as you lie there, because this is the most important diagnostic moment of the series. Your mind right now can recite to me the doctrines of dependence. You believe in God or in something. You believe you are held. You believe you are loved. You believe you are not, in any final metaphysical sense, alone. And while your mind is producing those affirmations, your solar plexus is clenched. Feel that clench. Right now, that clench is the orphan. He is in there. He is the one who has been generating that small central fist of will every minute of your life. He is the one who has been holding the world up while the believer above him sang the songs about grace. He is the one who never got the memo that the Father had arrived. And he is exhausted. You can feel it tonight. You can feel how tired the solar plexus is. You can feel how tired the hands are. You can feel how tired the neck is. But notice that the boy has not let go. Even exhausted, he has not let go, because he is still operating on the original vow. No one is coming. I have to do this. And to let go, even for a moment, would mean facing the question he has refused to face for his entire life. What if I was wrong? What if someone was always coming? What if the Father he saw in Scripture was not just a theological figure to admire, but the actual presence the boy in the room was looking for the day he made the vow? What if the holding the body has been doing for 40 years was not faithfulness? What if it was the smallest, most understandable form of unbelief? The unbelief that hides inside hyper-responsibility, the unbelief that wears the costume of stewardship, the unbelief that calls itself integrity, the unbelief that has been functionally orphaning a son inside the Father's house for 40 years. That question is too big for the mind to answer. It has to be answered in the body, in the hands that are about to be asked to release, in the solar plexus that is about to be asked to soften, in the neck that is about to be asked to let the weight slide off. But before we get there, the boy has to be acknowledged. The small boy in the room, the day he looked around and did not find the grown-up, the small boy who picked up the load no one was going to pick up for him, the small boy who has been holding the world together for 40 years in the body of a grown man who is now too tired to keep doing it. He is in there tonight. The orphan beneath the believer, the CEO of the universe, the functional substitute for the Father, and he is finally close enough to the surface to be seen. And in the next breath, he is going to be shown the throne he built for himself, and what it has actually cost him to sit on it for so long. So come back to now. back to the man in the dark room, back to the bed, back to the body still gripping a load the boy first picked up 4 decades ago, because the boy who signed the orphan's vow grew up, and the load grew with him. At 7, it was the size of a small room. At 12, it was the size of a house. At 20, it was the size of his future. At 30, it was the size of his career. At 40, it was the size of his family. And tonight, it is the size of his entire small universe. And he is still holding all of it. In the same body that first picked it up when he was a child, with the same solar plexus, the same hands, the same back of the neck. Tonight we are going to look at exactly what that has cost him. Not in dramatic terms. The controlling self in shadow does not collapse the way the other shadows collapse. He does not blow up his life like the reckless man. He does not lose himself in someone else's storm like the medic. He does not crack publicly like the charismatic man whose brand fails. He just gets quieter and heavier and more tired, and more remote from his own life, while appearing to everyone who knows him to be more competent than ever. This is the great deception of the heavy throne. The throne looks like the seat of a king. It is actually the seat of a small boy who has been pretending to be a king because no other king arrived, and the cost of the pretense is the entire interior life of the man. Start with what is happening to your joy. Notice that word, joy. You can feel something shift in your body the moment I say it. A small protective contraction, a faint sense that the word does not really belong to you anymore. That joy is for other people, or for younger people, or for people whose lives are simpler than yours. You do not call this the death of joy. You call it being a grown-up. You call it being realistic. You call it the appropriate sobriety of a man with serious responsibilities. But there was a time when you were not like this. There was a time when joy arrived in your body without being processed first. A song would land. A conversation would land. A meal would land. A morning would land. A small ordinary moment would land. And the body would respond. You would laugh from the chest, not the throat. The chest. You do not laugh from the chest much anymore, because the chest is occupied. The chest is where the solar plexus lives, and the solar plexus is busy. The solar plexus is running the universe. And joy, real joy, requires a kind of unguardedness in the chest that the controlling self has not been able to afford for a very long time. You can produce the smile. You can produce the laugh. You can show up at the dinner, the wedding, the celebration, the grandchild's birthday, and the body will go through the motions of joy. But underneath the performance of joy, the solar plexus is still clenched. The hands are still gripping. The back of the neck is still carrying. The list is still running. And the joy does not actually land. It cannot land because the body is fully booked. This is the first cost of the heavy throne. You have not laughed from the chest in years. And here is the part that is hardest to admit. You do not really miss it, because the controlling self has come to associate joy with risk. To laugh from the chest, you would have to soften. To soften, you would have to put the solar plexus down for a moment. To put the solar plexus down for a moment, you would have to trust that someone else was holding the universe. And the body does not trust that. So the body has quietly traded joy for the grim satisfaction of remaining in charge. Now look at what is happening to your rest. You sleep, but you do not rest. There is a difference. Sleep is what the body does when it can no longer remain awake. Rest is what the body does when it has been told that it is safe to let go. You sleep often. You do not rest at all. Notice this in the morning. You wake up, and before your feet hit the floor, the list has already started running. You did not pause it overnight. You suspended consciousness for a few hours. The list ran in the background the entire time. The solar plexus was clenched while you dreamed. The hands were gripping the blanket. The back of the neck was still carrying. You did not rest. You went unconscious in the saddle, and the body knows the difference. This is why you wake up tired. This is why no amount of sleep ever fully restores you. This is why the vacations do not work. This is why the long weekends do not work. This is why the retreat you went on 5 years ago, the one that was supposed to change everything, did not change anything. Because rest requires a release the body has not learned to perform. You can take time off. The body cannot. This is the second cost of the heavy throne. You are a man who has not actually rested in 40 years, and the body is keeping the receipt. Now look at what is happening to your worship. If you are a man of faith, this will land hardest. Because you go to church, or you have a daily practice, or you have a long, mature relationship with God that you take seriously, and you do all the things. You pray, you read, you confess, you worship, you give, you serve. And you have noticed in honest moments that something is not quite landing. The words are right. The theology is right. The discipline is right. The community is right. But the rest the Father offers, the rest that Scripture promises, the rest the great hymns describe, does not actually arrive in your body. You sing about resting in Christ, and the solar plexus does not loosen. You confess that the Lord is your shepherd, and the hands do not release. You receive the bread and the wine, and the back of the neck does not put down its load. The theology has not reached the orphan. You have a sophisticated relationship with the Father in your mind, and a primal, untouched, terrified relationship with the absence of the Father in your body. And the body is operating on the older relationship, even during the worship, even during the prayer, even during the most sincere moments of devotion you have ever known. The body has not let go, and it has not let go because the orphan inside it does not believe the Father is going to show up before the load gets too heavy. And so the body, in its small, terrified faithfulness, keeps holding the load, just in case. And you walk away from the most powerful moments of worship in your life, still tired, still gripped, still in charge, still functioning in the most precise sense of the word, as an orphan in the Father's house. This is the third cost of the heavy throne. Worship that does not reach the body, a faith that lives in the upper rooms of the mind, while the basement still operates under the older contract. Now look at what is happening to your relationships. Watch how you receive love, or rather, watch how you almost cannot. Someone tells you they love you. Your wife, your child, a friend, a brother, and your body does something strange. It receives the love at the surface, and then immediately routes it toward action. The love arrives. The controlling self converts it instantly into responsibility. Now I owe them more. Now I must take better care of them. Now I must earn this. Now I must continue to deserve it. Now I must build the system that protects this love and never lets it down. The love is not allowed to land as nourishment. The love is only allowed to land as a new entry on the list. Because the hands are already gripping, the hands that are gripping cannot also receive. A hand that is closed around the load cannot open to take in the gift. And so the love arrives decade after decade from the people who love you most. And it does not actually feed you. You are loved. You have been loved. You are loved right now. And you have not received the love at the level of the body. You have received it as more weight. More to manage, more to protect, more to be worthy of, more to be the king for. This is the fourth cost of the heavy throne. You cannot receive love as love. You can only receive it as another reason to keep holding. And here is the deepest cost. the cost the body has been quietly registering for 40 years, the cost no one in your life has had the words for, the cost that has been hiding underneath the appearance of competence. You have stopped feeling like a son. This is the most precise theological wound of the controlling self in shadow. You may believe in the Father, you may serve the Father, you may obey the Father, you may be by every external measure a faithful man, and in the deepest part of your body, you have not felt like a son in a very long time. You feel like staff, the competent steward, the reliable manager, the high-functioning subordinate, the one who keeps the household running while the father is presumably attending to weightier matters elsewhere. You are working for the Father. You are not, in any embodied sense, living as his son. You eat in the kitchen, not at the table. You sleep in the servants' quarters, not in a son's room. You serve the household. You do not rest in the household. And on the rare occasions when you have tried, when you have lain down in the deepest sense and tried to let the Father be the Father, the orphan in your body has woken up within minutes and reached for the load again. Because the orphan does not know how to be a son, the orphan only knows how to be staff, and the staff cannot rest. Because the staff has not been adopted yet, this is the wound that Scripture itself has been speaking to your entire life. This is the wound the spirit of adoption is meant to heal. This is the wound the great prayers were written to address. And the body has not heard those prayers, because the body cannot hear what the orphan is filtering. And the orphan has been filtering for 40 years. This is the fifth cost. And the deepest one, you have lived in the Father's house without ever being able to receive the fact that you are his son. Now I want you to feel something right now in your body. Imagine for one moment putting the load down, not forever, just for tonight. Imagine letting the hands open, the solar plexus soften, the back of the neck unburden. And notice what happens. The body does not feel relief. The body feels terror, a small, quick wave of panic, a jolt of pure primal alarm, a sudden automatic re-gripping. The hands close again before you have decided to close them. The solar plexus tightens again before you have decided to tighten it. The back of the neck takes the load back up before you have given it permission to. That is the orphan. That is the boy in the room, all those years ago, refusing to let the load fall. Because if the load falls in his small body's calculation, the world ends. And no one else is here to catch it. This is the most precise diagnosis of the heavy throne. It is not that you choose to hold the load. The orphan in your body cannot bear to release it, and you have lived your entire adult life under the dictatorship of a small boy who decided at the age of 6 or 7 or 8 that he was alone, and who has been governing your nervous system ever since. A small, terrified king, wearing a crown that was always too heavy for him, on a throne that was never meant to be his, while the real king, the actual father, the one the boy was looking for in that childhood room, has been standing in the doorway of his house for 40 years, waiting for the orphan to finally turn around and see him. And tonight, in the honest dark, the orphan is finally tired enough to turn. Not because his theology has improved. His theology has been right for years, but because the body has finally run out of the strength to keep pretending to be the king. The solar plexus is finished. The hands are exhausted. The back of the neck cannot hold one more day of the load. And in the giving out of the body, there is for the first time a gap, a small opening, a place where the grip has weakened just enough that the boy might actually turn around and see who has been standing behind him the entire time. That turning, that small, somatic, embodied turning of a small boy who has held the world for 40 years toward a father who has been there the whole time, is the work of the next part of this episode, and it is the deepest somatic work in the entire series, because it is the work that releases all the others. The boy who turns toward the father no longer needs to bury his no to be safe, no longer needs to become the medic to be loved, no longer needs to scan for catastrophe, no longer needs to manufacture the frontier, no longer needs to outsource his knowing, no longer needs to wear the curated face, no longer needs to climb above his own body, because the orphan is the engine, and the engine is finally about to be turned off. Not by force, not by discipline, not by one more practice, by a single small embodied act of recognition. The Father is here. The Father has always been here. I am not alone. I never was. So let us begin the work. Not the thinking, the work. Because the witness has shown you the orphan. The witness has shown you the boy in the room who decided no one was coming. The witness has shown you the load he picked up and has been carrying for 40 years, inside the body of a grown man who is, by every external measure, faithful. And seeing is not enough. You have seen this before. You have known in some honest hour that you were too gripped. You have known in some honest moment of prayer that you were not actually trusting. You have known somewhere in the back of your own awareness that the load you carry was bigger than the load a son was meant to carry in his father's house. And the knowing did not unclench the solar plexus. because the orphan's vow was not signed in your mind. It was signed in your body, in the small body of a boy who looked around the room and did not find a grown-up, in the hands that closed around a load no one else was going to pick up, in the solar plexus that began generating a small central fist of will, because a child concluded without words that the universe was going to require him to be its substitute father. And a contract signed in the body can only be rewritten in the body. So tonight we are not going to try harder to trust. You have tried harder to trust for 40 years. Trying harder to trust is the orphan's most sophisticated strategy. Tonight we are going to perform an initiation, the final somatic initiation in the series, and it has a name that the controlling self has never been allowed to consider. Grip to Grace. The protocol has 3 movements. The first is called naming the load. The second is called the open hand. The third is called the turning around. Each one is a small embodied act that begins to dismantle the orphan's vow, not by overriding it, but by introducing the orphan to the father he has been refusing with his body to receive. Start with the first, naming the load. Tonight, right now, you are going to do something the controlling self has not done in his adult life. You are going to name what you are carrying out loud, or in the silence of the room, but specifically, not abstractly, not the general burden of being a responsible man. Specifically, what is in your hands tonight? You may be surprised at how much shows up. The mortgage, the job, the aging parent, the child who is struggling, the marriage that is not where you wish it were, the friend whose health is failing, the bills that have to be tracked, the taxes that are coming, the roof, the car, the retirement, the legacy, the reputation, the unfinished apology, the conversation you have been postponing, the decision you have been carrying that should have been made months ago. Name them. Slowly, one at a time, out loud if you can. And as you name each one, notice something happen in your body. The solar plexus is going to register each item. Each thing you name will produce a small additional pulse of clench, because the body has been holding each one in a specific location, and the naming is the body's first acknowledgement of what it has actually been holding. This is not a complaint. This is not self-pity. This is the first time in 40 years that the load has been weighed in your own awareness. Because the controlling self never lets himself fully feel the weight he is carrying. He cannot afford to. The full weight would force him to confront the impossibility of what he has been doing. And so he carries it in fragments, he carries it in the background. He carries it without ever standing back and looking at the whole pile. Tonight you are going to look, and you are going to acknowledge what the small boy has been holding in his small hands for 4 decades. Now the second movement, the open hand. This is the most physical movement in the entire series. You are going to do something almost no controlling self has ever done deliberately. You are going to open your hands, literally right now, on top of the blanket, or beside you on the bed, or wherever your hands are. You are going to turn the palms up, and you are going to spread the fingers. Slowly, like a man unfurling something that has been clenched for a long time. Notice what happens. The fingers do not want to release fully. There is a small, persistent residual tension that does not go away when you tell it to. The hands have forgotten how to be fully open. The body has lost the muscle memory of release. Stay with it. Let the fingers stretch. Let the palms rise up toward the ceiling. Let the small joints in each finger find their actual resting position. And notice what your solar plexus does in response. It does not relax. Not yet. It tightens. Because the body is registering the position as a threat. The hands have been gripping for so long that the open hand feels like an emergency. The orphan does not understand what is happening. He has just watched his hands open, and his last line of defense against the cosmos has just been disarmed. Stay there anyway. This is the critical moment. The body is going to want to close the hands again within seconds. The fingers will start to curl on their own. The thumbs will drift back toward the palms. The position of receptivity will quietly try to convert itself back into the position of holding. Do not let it. Keep the palms turned up. Keep the fingers spread for just a few breaths. And while you are holding the open hand, say something the controlling self has not been allowed to say in 40 years. I am not the one holding this. Not yet as a theological statement, as a confession of fact. I am not the one holding this. The universe did not actually delegate this to me. The cosmos is not actually waiting to see if I can pull this off. The Father is not actually depending on my solar plexus to keep his world together overnight. I am not the one holding this. Say it again until the body starts to register the words. I am not the one holding this. And keep the hands open. Because here is the thing the orphan has never let himself find out. When the hands open, the load does not actually fall. This is the discovery the entire grip has been preventing. The boy believed all those years ago that if his hands opened, the world would collapse. that if he stopped holding, the people he was trying to protect would be hurt. That if he released the load, the gap his body had been filling would prove fatal. And he was wrong, because the load he has been holding was never actually being held by his solar plexus. The solar plexus was not load-bearing. The solar plexus was performing. The body was generating the felt experience of holding the world up, while the world, unrelated to the body's effort, continued to be held by the one who actually holds it. This is the secret the orphan has refused to test his entire life. He has never opened his hands long enough to find out that the load was not on his hands in the first place. The hands were closed around a phantom weight. The solar plexus was clenched around a phantom responsibility. The back of the neck was carrying a phantom burden, the actual load, the marriage, the children, the business, the body, the future, the universe itself has been carried the entire time by someone else. The orphan was never load-bearing. The orphan was performing the labor of being load-bearing in a system that was already being held without him, and every minute he spent gripping, he was generating fatigue on his own body for a job no one had actually assigned him to. The hands open, and nothing falls. The solar plexus softens just a quarter inch, and nothing falls. The back of the neck releases just a fraction, and nothing falls. This is the data the orphan has never been allowed to collect. And every breath you take tonight with the hands open, you are collecting it for him. You are gathering in your body the first experimental evidence in 40 years that the world does not require your grip. The world is fine. The people you love are fine. The Father is the Father. You are the Son. And the Son does not have to hold the household together overnight. Now the third movement, the turning around. This is the deepest of the three, and it cannot be done with the mind. It can only be done with the body. Keep the hands open, keep the palms up, and in your imagination, go back into the room where the boy first decided that no one was coming. You do not have to remember the exact moment. The body remembers it. Trust the body. The small boy is standing in the middle of the room. He is looking around. He is reaching with his small hands for the load he is about to pick up. He believes he is alone. He has been believing that for 40 years. Now I want you to do something. I want you to ask the small boy to turn around. Not to do anything else. Not to drop the load. Not to trust. Not to surrender. Just to turn around, because the entire vow was signed without him ever looking behind him. He scanned the room for a grown-up. He did not see one. And he made the vow. But he never turned around. And tonight, for the first time in 40 years, he is going to... The boy turns. Slowly, tired, suspicious, and he sees, standing in the doorway of the room he has been holding by himself, the father he has been refusing with his body to believe is there. However you understand the Father, however you have named him, however your faith has shaped your sense of his presence, he is in the doorway, and he has been in the doorway the whole time. The boy was facing the wrong direction. He was facing the load. He was facing the room. He was facing the chaos he had appointed himself to manage. He was not facing the door. He was not facing the one who was already there. And now in the honest dark of tonight, the small boy in your body turns around for the first time, and he sees that the room he has been holding by himself was always being held by someone bigger than him. He sees that the load he picked up in panic was never his to pick up. He sees that the Father who he believed was absent was present the entire time behind him. While he was performing the substitute fatherhood, the real Father was watching, waiting, holding, providing, sustaining. And the boy in your body, hearing this for the first time, loosens his grip. Not because he has been argued out of it, because he has finally seen what was behind him the whole time, and the loosening is not all at once. The orphan does not become a son in a single breath. The body that has gripped for 40 years does not release in one initiation, but something has shifted. A small, real embodied shift. The hands are open. The solar plexus is a 1/4 inch looser. The back of the neck has put down a portion of the load it has been carrying since childhood. And the boy is, for the first time in his life, facing the right direction. This is the sovereign contract for the controlling self. And it is the last of the 7. Say it now. Not from the mind, from the open hands, from the loosening solar plexus, from the back of the neck that has just put down its first portion of the load. I am not the one who holds. I am the one who is held. I have been holding for 40 years. I have been the substitute father. I have been the CEO of a universe that was never accepting applications for the position. And I am tired. And the Father is here. And the Father was always here. And I do not have to hold anymore. Not because the load disappeared. Not because the responsibilities vanished. Not because the people I love stopped needing me, but because I was never the one truly holding any of it. I am not the one who holds. I am the one who is held. This is the new contract. Signed not in your mind, signed in the open hand, signed in the softening solar plexus, signed in the neck that is finally giving its load over to the one who was always meant to carry it. And every breath you take tonight with the hands open, every minute you spend facing the doorway instead of the load, every moment the orphan inside you allows the Father to actually be the Father is another signature on the contract. And here is the gift this work returns to you: sonship. The thing your theology has been describing for years and your body has never been able to receive. You can stop being staff. You can come out of the kitchen. You can sit at the table. You can sleep in a son's room in the actual house of the actual Father who has been holding the actual roof the entire time you were running the spreadsheet of your own life. You can rest. Not the rest of a job well done, the rest of a son in his Father's house, the rest the orphan has been longing for from the day he made the vow. The rest the body has been refusing for 40 years. The rest that has been waiting on the other side of one small embodied act. The opening of a hand. The turning around. The seeing of who has been there the whole time. So let the hand stay open now. You have done the deepest thing, or you have seen for the first time what the deepest thing will be. Either way, something in you has shifted tonight. Something has shifted across all 8 nights. Let your breath find its own pace. Slower now. Deeper than it was when we began. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. The simple gravity of being here, held by the earth, held by something deeper than the earth. At rest, the load is on the floor. Let it stay there. The hands are open. The solar plexus has loosened. The back of the neck has put down a portion of what it has been carrying since you were a small boy in a small room. And the boy has turned around. For the first time in 40 years, he has seen the doorway. He has seen who has been standing in it the whole time. And the Father has not said anything yet. He does not need to. He is just there, the way he has always been there, the way he was there in the original room, the day the boy made the vow, the way he was there during every year the orphan was running the spreadsheet of his own life, the way he was there in every prayer the believer spoke on top of the body of an orphan who could not hear it. He is there now. And the boy is letting himself be looked at for the first time without performing, without holding, without managing, without being the CEO of the universe, without being staff in his own Father's house. Just a son, tired, empty-handed, finally seen. Stay there. There is no more work to do tonight. Now let me show you something. While the boy is resting in the doorway with the father, turn your awareness slowly through the rest of the castle, because something has been quietly happening in every other room while we were down here undoing the foundational vow. Walk with me down the long hallway of your own interior, past the first door, the room of the passive self. The boy in there who buried his no is no longer alone in the cellar. The man who has been holding the world is no longer running the household above him. The pressure to be agreeable to keep the peace has eased. The buried no has begun to come up, not because he learned to speak, because he is no longer alone in a house with no father in it. The chained animal in his cellar has settled, and the king of that room is on his throne. Past the second door, the room of the codependent self. The medic, he has put down the radio. He is no longer triaging at midnight, because the man who used to scan everyone else's emotional weather was scanning because he was the only adult in the room. There is another adult in the room now, and the medic does not have to take the next call. The boy who became the meteorologist of every household he ever entered is finally being met by someone whose weather he does not have to manage. And the king of that room is on his throne. Past the third door, the room of the insecure self. The scrutinizer, the dish has slowed, not because the world has gotten safer, because the boy on the radar tower is no longer the only sentry. The wheel is on the floor. The lower back has unclenched. The diaphragm has loosened. The eyes have stopped scanning, because the boy who decided that surprises were dangerous has been told something the contract never let him hear. He is not the only line of defense, and the king of that room is on his throne. Past the fourth door, the room of the reckless self. The boy on the rock. The match is on the floor. The engine has quieted, not because the fire has gone out, because the man who used to manufacture artificial danger has discovered in his body that he does not have to invent his own initiations anymore. The father has been holding the real frontier the entire time, and he is not stingy about giving it to his sons. The boy on the rock has come down, and the king of that room is on his throne. Past the fifth door, the room of the intuitive self. The channel, the static has thinned. The wattage of other people's certainty is no longer the loudest thing in the room, because the boy whose perception was overruled is finally being heard by the man whose body he lives in, and by the father who has been the original source of every true signal that boy ever received. The dial is down. The signal is up. The still small voice is finally landing. and the king of that room is on his throne. Past the 6th door, the room of the charismatic self, the boy in the basement. He is no longer in the basement. He came upstairs by inches over the course of the protocol. He has been heard. He has been received. The unbranded sentence has been allowed to stand in the air, and the man who has been performing for the imaginary audience installed inside his own skull no longer has to perform, because the only audience that has ever truly mattered is the one in the doorway, and he has already received the real face. The mask is on the floor, and the king of that room is on his throne. Past the 7th door, the room of the transcendent self. The practitioner, the ladder is on the floor. He is no longer climbing, because the love he was climbing toward has met him in the body, in the chest where the knot was. In the ordinary humanness the contract told him to leave behind. The Word has become flesh in him, not as theology, as experience, as his actual nervous system, finally allowing the divine to inhabit the animal it was always trying to inhabit. Holiness with wholeness. And the king of that room is on his throne, and now you are back here. The 8th room, the boiler room of the castle, the foundation underneath the rest, and you can see now what was always true. The 7 rooms were never separate problems. They were 7 strategies for surviving the same vow. The vow that there was no one in the doorway, the vow that the boy was alone, the vow that the load was his to hold. And once the orphan turned around, once he saw that the father had been there the entire time, every other room in the castle could finally come to rest. Because the engine of every shadow was the same engine, the hands, the solar plexus, the back of the neck, the boy carrying a world that was never his to carry. And tonight all 7 kings are on their thrones, not because they earned their crowns, because the one whose house they live in has finally been allowed to put the crowns on them. Stay with that for a moment. You did not crown yourself. You spent 40 years trying to crown yourself. You spent 40 years trying to be your own king. You spent 40 years on the heavy throne wearing a crown that did not fit because no one else was going to give you one. And the crown you tried to wear was always too heavy because it was the wrong crown. The crown of the orphan king is the crown of the substitute. The crown of the actual king is the crown given by the Father. And the crown given by the Father is not heavy because the Father is the one holding it on your head. You did not crown yourself. You were crowned. The crownless is once again king. Let those words land in your body, not in your mind. not as a slogan, not as the line at the end of a season, as a somatic fact about your actual life as of this night. The crownless is once again king, the man who took off the orphan's crown, who put down the substitute father's load, who opened his hands and let the universe be held by the one who was always holding it, has been given back the crown that was always meant to be his, not the crown of the manager, not the crown of the CEO, not the crown of the high-functioning anxious man pretending to be sovereign, the crown of a son. The crown of a man who lives inside a house he did not have to build, fed at a table he did not have to set, sleeping under a roof he did not have to hold up, a son in his father's house. Crowned, held at rest, and not one of the 7 boys had to die for this to be true. Not one of them had to be exiled. Not one of them had to be transcended. Not one of them had to be left behind in the basement, the cellar, the rock, the radar tower, the kitchen, the medic's tent, the chained cage, the climbing ladder. They all came home. The passive boy, the medic boy, the scrutinizer boy, the reckless boy, the outsourced boy, the performer boy, the climbing boy, the orphan boy, 8 sons in one body, finally home, with the father in the house, at the table, at rest. So let me speak the final blessing over you now. A blessing for the crownless king who has walked through every room of his own castle. Listen to it with your body, not your mind. The body, that tired animal, that faithful beast, is dismissed. The jaw unclenches, the hand opens, the load falls, the solar plexus releases. The back of the neck puts down the weight of the world for the first time in 40 years. And all the holding that tried to become eternal finds the one door it cannot follow you through. Blessed is the hand that opens. Blessed is the solar plexus that softens. Blessed is the back of the neck that finally lets the load slide off. Blessed is the orphan who turns around and sees the father. Blessed is the substitute who steps down. Blessed is the staff who is told he is a son. Blessed is the boy in the kitchen who is finally led to the table. Blessed is the man who learns in his body that he is not the one who holds. Blessed is the small king who hands his heavy crown back and discovers that a real crown was waiting for him the whole time. Blessed are all 8 boys finally awake in the same body. Blessed is the castle finally quiet. Blessed is the final gate where the soul walks on, unburdened by the names it was never meant to wear forever. The responsible one, the reliable one, the steady one, the one who holds, the CEO of the universe, the substitute father, the functional orphan. You can set those names down now. You are not required to carry the world in order to be loved. You are not required to be the one who holds in order to be allowed to rest. You are not required to substitute for a father who has been standing in the doorway your entire life. Let the hand stay open. Let the load stay on the floor. Let the solar plexus soften. Let the back of the neck rest. Let the breath go slow. The boy has turned around. The father is in the doorway. The 8 rooms are quiet. The 7 kings are on their thrones. And the 8th, the one beneath them all, has finally stopped pretending to be his own king and let himself be crowned. The crownless is once again king, not because he won, because he stopped fighting to be his own father, and let the father he always had finally crown him. Sleep now. The castle is finished. All 8 doors are open. All 8 boys are home. The king has returned. The true king, the one the orphan was always reaching for. When he picked up the load that was never his, he is here. He has always been here. And the war, the long, exhausting, lifelong war between the boy who decided he was alone and the father who was always there, is over. Sleep, my friend. The father is holding the night. You no longer have to Tonight, the orphan turned around. In a moment, the final episode will begin playing automatically. Heal Your Shadow Self, the capstone of this entire series, where you learn to tell the sacred part of your darkness from the thing that has been feeding on it. Stay and let it play. And hear this: one night opens the hands. Living as a son instead of staff is a practice. In Awaken Your Shadow, I trace the orphan's vow to its root, and I give you the daily covenant that keeps the load where it belongs, in the Father's hands. The audiobook is linked below this video. Click that link now to begin your journey, or continue listening for the next video in this series.